evening. I'm Latha Bonnewell, and this is the Dubuque County Fine Arts Society Get Acquainted Around the World program. There are here in the Dubuque area international students from all 6 occupied continents. My husband Bob brings representatives from each of these countries into the studio where I interview them in order that we here in Dubuque may better understand the global society in which we live today. Now, I am utterly charmed by the 2 guests that we have tonight. They are delightful, and we turn to them now, and I ask them to introduce themselves and tell us the school that they are studying at.
My name is Danelle Crawford-Stephens, and I am a first-year student at the University of Dubuque Theological Seminary.
Thank you, Danelle.
I'm Ron McKinney. I'm also a first-year student at the University of Dubuque Theological Seminary.
Thank you, Ron. And actually, you are from the North American continent and the United States. And let's go to the map and identify exactly where in the United States. Now, one of you is from South Dakota, which is right about here approximately, and the other from Oklahoma, which is approximately there. And you come as Native Americans, am I right?
Yes.
So let's identify your tribes.
I come from the Sisseton Wahpeton Sioux tribe, which is in the northeastern part of South Dakota, and we speak the Dakota dialect.
Good. All right, and you, Ron?
I come from the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma.
All right, and your language then?
It's Choctaw, yeah.
Now you say nation, and that's one thing I do have down there is to speak a little later about the fact that you actually are a group, or have been a group of nations. You know, we think of you as tribes, but you've been like the nations of Europe, for instance, individual groups. But first, let's look at your Indian name.
My name is Iwiawin,
Yes.
which means running woman.
A running woman. I like that for today's lifestyle, today's interests, the feminine movement, and so forth. That's great. And yours, Ron?
I personally don't have an Indian name, but my family Indian name would have been Atagalantapi. My great-grandfather, his name was Atagalantapi, but he was adopted into a family called McKinney, so that's where our name changed.
But what does that mean now?
That means second killer.
Now, I want to know why the second killer.
In the old tradition, the Choctaws would get their names either in battle or through an act of bravery or some characteristic that they might have had. And so we're not sure where the name came from. We don't know exactly where he came from. He was kind of orphaned, I guess.
But I think that's wonderful. It goes back as far as your great-grandfather, and you carry on that name and that tradition then.
Yeah.
Now, didn't we give the meaning of your name? I mean, other than running woman, what historical or what cultural?
Like Ron said, usually a characteristic that you carry, that's how you get your name. And when I was working back home for a presbytery meeting, I was always late or doing something, and for me to hurry up and get there, I was always running. And so one of the elderly women of the community had said, well, since you're always running, we're going to call you Running Woman. And I was always disappointed because I wanted a beautiful name, like, you know, like Ishtamani, which means watery eyes or something beautiful like that, but I ended up with Running Woman.
Well, I think that's beautiful. I think it shows a commitment to your people, a commitment to the community, you know, a commitment to others. That's beautiful. So please have no disappointment. What other names in your family?
My dad's name was Waksha Zizi Kwagmani,
Yes.
which stands for Walking, Laughing Yellow Flower. And
What a beautiful name. Now tell me why.
I understand just through stories passed down that he was called this because when he walked, he looked like a laughing yellow flower, like a sunflower in a field.
And there are lots of sunflowers in that area, aren't there?
Yes. Yeah.
And any other names that you know of within your family then?
There are a lot of them, but I just, we had an original last name that wasn't traditional Indian, but kind of like Ron's last name, but I don't remember what it was or what it meant.
And what about any other names at all? That
On my mother's side of the family name would have been Imahuna. And that means if someone is talking about the people, they're talking about they come to them. So I couldn't apply the name to myself, but if I was speaking of Danelle and said people come to her, that's what it refers to.
As I questioned you earlier, you're not always sure and so forth and so on, which means that you've gotten away from a beautiful tradition. Are you going to try to revive it? Are you going to try to get back to some of that?
A lot of, from my experience, one of the main things that I really would like to explore into more is the language. How it was lost before, and now there's been a movement to try to rebuild the language together, and that's interesting me, and also the history, more of how the Dakotas had traveled around on the plains and how they what they ate and what they did before the settlers came.
Good. I do like to hear that. I had told you earlier I wanted this to be about your culture, about your society, about your history. And I think too much around the world, people are westernizing, I call it, and forgetting this. And it's so important, and there's so much beauty there. So I'm glad to hear you say just this. But both of you spoke your native names and all so beautifully that I thought maybe, but you're not using your native language then to any degree.
Where I come from, in our churches, we have the Bible and some hymns that are translated into our language using the same alphabet that English uses, but they're just different words. And so a lot of times our scriptures are read in Choctaw, or our hymns are sung in Choctaw.
How beautiful.
And depending on the people who are present, then the minister or whoever is speaking that day may speak in Choctaw, or they may speak a mixture of Choctaw and English, or sometimes just English.
In our culture, it's kind of like that. We have our Dakota hymnal that was translated through Williamson and missionaries that came over, and we sing out of them. And then we have the elderly people who come and will pray in the language, and then they'll say it again in English so. A lot of the younger generation aren't really bilingual, but they know certain words. They can pick up the main words out of the language.
I did ask you why you happened to come here. Both of you are out of state. Why did you come to the University of Dubuque Theological Seminary?
My father was a 1986 graduate of the seminary.
Truly.
And since then, I've always admired that and wanted to, if I ever went to seminary, I wanted to go where my dad went. And so I've always wanted to come to Dubuque, and I'm glad I did.
You told me something else about your father.
On January 1st, 1988, my father died of a heart attack in Salt Lake City while he was waiting for donor for a heart transplant for his heart disease that he had. This was 10 months after he was ordained as a minister.
My dear, how sad.
But he had a wonderful message, and he was an alcoholic all his life, and then he turned his life over when I was 13. And since then, his life working through sobriety and stuff like that was important to him. And so the message that he leaves is very important to me.
Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. What age was he? You told me that too, and
He was 50 when he died.
And that was very, very difficult, and you love him dearly and have a closeness to him. That's very obvious. Yes. And you, Ron?
Part of it was tradition. A friend of mine that I had grown up with graduated from Dubuque in 1991. And also 2 of my pastors from the past have graduated in earlier years. And so that was a part of my decision to come here. Other seminaries also are in bigger cities. And part of it was financially the Native American Scholarship Program here. So it was a kind of a combination of all the different
several
things.
factors.
Yeah.
This is graduate work for both of you. Where did you get your first degrees?
I got my Bachelor of Science degree in English for Information Systems at Dakota State University in Madison, which is a small town just west of my hometown of Flandreau.
I graduated in 1989 from the University of the Ozarks in Clarksville, Arkansas. It's in northwestern Arkansas.
And what did you say your first degree was in now?
Bachelor of Science in English for Information Systems.
Okay, and so what did you really plan to do originally then?
I didn't know. I like the English part because it helped me to understand to get away from the jargon that you learn, how we misuse grammar a lot, and that would help me communicate better. And that's what I was looking for first.
And Ron?
My degree was a composite degree in psychology and sociology, and I'm looking at going into pastoral counseling.
Oh, that would tie in beautifully with it. But of course, both of you have degrees that can be useful in any direction. Both of them. Mm-hmm. Well, let's see. One of the things I asked you if there was a history to the names in your family, and I guess we pursued that as far as we want to. What determined the name of your tribe? Do you know that?
I don't know what determined the name of the tribe, but I know that through stories that I've heard, we belong to like a fish clan.
Fish clan?
Yeah, because
in South Dakota?
Yeah, we're divided into little clans, and our clan was considered fish because of the lakes. When the glacier came down and left all of the lakes that were there.
Way back in time then.
Yeah. And so there was a lot of fishing that was done in the area where I come from.
And is it today? You say in the past, but today too?
Well, I don't think they do too much fishing today because they're so busy and stuff.
Yeah, and what I meant was, do the lakes still exist?
Oh, yeah.
The lakes still exist?
They're all over up there.
The only legend I've heard of where the Choctaws got their name was that at one point the Choctaws lived somewhere far to the north of the present site of Mississippi, where the tribe, what we call the homeland now, and that the elders that were going to lead the people to this new homeland were older, and they didn't feel that they could make that journey. And so instead of choosing leaders, 2 were born. They wanted leaders of equal stature. And so when twins were born, they chose them as the leaders. And so they were named Chatha and Chickasaw. And over a period of time, they believed that it became 2 tribes, the Choctaws and the Chickasaws.
I see. Okay, now is someone going to focus in on this? Because I have 2 publications here that deal with Native Americans, and I thought we'd ask some questions from that or speak to this. Now, this is the Smithsonian, which of course is a prestigious organization, and this is the cover of that magazine a couple of years ago. They have, do you know anything about this? They have a beautiful museum in Canada, and they have cultures actually from around the world. But this article starts with the part of the Smithsonian, this part of the museum there in Canada that deals with the Native American. And this shows a child who's visiting the museum with, of course, in Canada, with the fur cap and the warm garment, and a boat that was a part of the Indian. And then, of course, and I'm going to take this away now from here, this deals also with the totem poles, which were a part of, I believe, of the western U.S. and wouldn't be a part of yours. But it spoke of a simplicity of Indian villages with their, in this instance, canoes and fish nets and salmon drying and things like this, and their racks and so forth. And I know, but what it speaks of the splendid collection of artifacts. And you know, too, as I was interesting as I prepared for this, my father was a great collector of Indian artifacts. We lived below South Dakota in western Nebraska, and he had so many artifacts and a great love for the African kind of thing. And we might mention your beautiful earrings. Sort of swing them out with your head, will you? And tell us something about those.
A lot of the culture involves beading, some beadwork.
Yes, the Indian.
And there's pipestone, the rock carving of peace pipes. There's a lot, some quilting, the star quilts, and all of these things that crafts that they do to get. But the main thing about all of that is the gift of giving, the important part of giving something, because you honor your loved ones, you honor your friends. All of this is a part of honoring. When somebody dies, you mourn for a year, and then the family will put on a big dinner, and following the dinner, they have a giveaway where they give away all of the precious items that they have. They can't keep anything. It has to be all in a generosity type thing, and they give it away, and even the food. They can't keep any of the food. Everything has to be given away as in honor of remembering the person who had died, but also in honor of the people who were there for the support that they had given them throughout the year. And so there's a lot of that.
Beautiful tribal custom. Yeah, beautiful. And I know you did say that your earrings had been given to you. And is part of that because of extended family and the closeness that still exists within your tribe?
We call that Tioshpaye.
Yes.
That means extended family. I remember times when we would go to the hospital when my dad was there, and his brothers and sisters and cousins and everybody would come, and they would say, oh, only immediate family. And they would say, well, this is immediate family.
Only the immediate family.
And even his cousins, we aren't regarded as cousins or whatever. They would they would be considered as brother and sister. So his cousins would be considered my uncles.
Well, that's interesting because we were in Africa a long time ago when we learned that they don't even have a word for niece or nephew. That it's my brother's son, and so that wonderful closeness, that wonderful family love and concern is great. The other publication I have is Utne, which is also, like the Smithsonian, a very prestigious, and this speaks about the relationship to the land that you often feel. Now, is that something that seems to be a part of your society, or not recognizable, or something you want to talk to, or not?
Yeah, it is. The Choctaws in the old days, when they would do their dances, all the dances.
I wish we could. Will you get up and do a few steps?
all of the dances were done flat-footed, so that the people could feel the vibration from the earth as the dancers danced, and as either the drums beat or the sticks were hit together. And also, one of the Choctaw creation legends was that they came from the earth, and that in Mississippi there's a mound there called Naniwaya, and that's where the Choctaws believe they were called forth from. And so they look at the earth as their mother. And so even today, part of what we consider our traditional dress wear, we wear ribbons at our side. For the men, they wear it at their waist and it hangs down to the ground. And for the women, they wear it on their collar on the back and it hangs down to the ground. And in both instances, the ribbons touch the ground, which signifies our connection with Mother Earth.
Interesting. Now that's peculiar to your tribe, that
Yeah.
particular.
Yeah.
One of the things that is mentioned in this Atne is healing with an ancient group ritual. Are you aware of anything like that within your tribe? Well, one of the things that I did mention to you was that when you said your father had died at a fairly early age, they have discovered that the Indians lived longer before they met the white man, that you had a much more nutritious diet, and that things like, I said diabetes and so on, had never even existed among the Indians until about the 1930s.
I know for the Dakotas, they traveled a lot, so they couldn't carry a lot of the food with them. They had to make it lighter. And one of the things that they did to make it lighter was dry the food. And it's healthier when you have dried food like that. Also, it was important that they would get the food from other sources. I remember one of the elders of our community telling us how in the old days they would go and dig into the gopher holes and different holes that they had where animals lived, and they would take the nuts that they had gathered, but they had to leave something in return, so they would put corn in replace of the nuts that they got instead. So there was always that respect for the other animals and the other parts of the living things that exist with Mother Earth.
That's beautiful, just a beautiful philosophy that today we're realizing the significance of. Taking something but leaving as well. One of the things it says here is that singing your songs and dancing your dances and praying your religion. Now you made some reference to this, but anything else about the singing, the dancing?
I think for the Choctaws, they didn't have a sacred religion as some tribes did in the old days. The most important thing for an individual was to be a part of the group, to be a part of the community. And so they would feast, they would have a lot of celebrations during the year, and part of that was singing and telling the story of the people, and having that group, that community building type association with one another. And today we still have that, even though it has kind of moved off into our churches. It's through our churches. Down where I'm from, we have what we call all-night singings, where a church will sponsor a singing at night, and people will come from all over, all different denominations, and we all sing either hymns, gospel songs, songs in our native tongue, or people have songs maybe they've written, and it's part of that old tradition of dancing and singing all night, but it has moved into the Christian community now, and is part of worship now.
But it also shows a very joyous nature.
Yes, and it's still part of a community building, because they start about 7 or 8 in the evening, and they'll sing and sing and sing until 2 or 3, sometimes even 4 in the morning.
And is there food with that?
Yeah.
And what kinds of foods then?
A lot of.
And by the way, I wanted to ask you, is that food in the native language?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
And then what foods then? And are they native foods?
Yeah, most of the time they might have a potluck or something, but when they sponsor a singing like this, then usually they try to have the traditional food. There's banaha, which is a bread. It's made out of cornmeal, and it's wrapped in corn husks. And then we have another dish called tanchi labona, which is it would be like a dried hominy that has been pounded and broken, and then it will be cooked into a porridge with some meat added or something, and that's pretty much the mainstay. But they have other dishes too, and so they'll feed all evening, and then the people will sing and sing.
Great.
We have what we call the dried corn. We dried all our food, so the dried corn soup is what we call waskuya. And then we have like choke cherries that are pounded
Choke
together
cherries. Now,
into
I
like a
remember
pudding,
choke cherries,
into
yes.
like a pudding type thing, and they call that woshapi. And that's like a dessert for everybody. That's a real treat. And then with our waskuya, they usually have like fry bread or something like that.
Well, I want you for a lifetime, both of you, to help preserve all those things and more now. I do, because they're beautiful, and it's too bad to lose any of it. One of the things that was mentioned in here, and I said something on the program here a little bit earlier, but each one of the tribes actually is an individual nation, is it not? And I think sometimes people tend to think of Indians, but you are individual nations, just as much as Europe has individual nations. We know that Germany and France are two different nations. Well, so with your tribes.
Yeah, and I think it's important to point out too that we don't still live in teepees and we still don't dress in buckskin dresses. We're just like everybody else. We go to school,
Sure.
and we, eat pizza and drink pop just like the rest of everybody.
Beautifully, sure. Any other comments that we just have a few minutes? What would you most like to leave with us that's important?
I think for me, what I like to tell people is that we're still here, because a lot of times people think that Native Americans are only in history books or in the movies, and then the only ones they see are the stereotypes, or the bad movies.
Yes.
And so, but we're people like everyone else. We have the same concerns, the same dreams, and we're still around.
And I think it's important to remember the importance of generosity and hospitality, to greet one another and honor them when you meet with them.
Thank you very much for coming. I'm sorry about this.